The hurly-burly's almost done. The battle's nearly lost and won. Many of you will recognise the words from the opening scene of Macbeth. That scene ends with the witches chanting, "Fair is foul and foul is fair." That seemed like an apt metaphor to me. We need to ask ourselves a fundamental question rarely thought about today. How did we get to where we are in Europe and America? How are we relatively free while much of the world for much of history was in chains? Well, of course, it can be traced back to the European Renaissance. This was a momentous time for human freedom and advancement. The papacy declined as the concept of nations grew. Feudalism was in retreat and free commerce developed. Theological scholasticism withered while free thought and free inquiry grew. It was a fundamental change in man's attitude towards himself as a free individual. It was where Europe transitioned from the medieval world to modernity. The Renaissance was the spirit of emancipation, the revolt of a man against the despotism of arbitrary authority. Remember, the whole medieval system had been fatal to the concept of individuality. In relations with the church, the state, the lord, or the guild, medieval man was simply a cog in the machine. He wasn't autonomous. He couldn't think or speak freely, much less decide his destiny. He had to accept his place. The baron said so, the corrupt medieval church, speaking for God, said so, and most of the local community, initially anyway, agreed. To go against that risked not only your life, but your eternal soul. The basis of feudalism was subordination. Independence of thought wasn't a virtue. The church taught submission to authority regardless of how blind, how blinkered, or how objectively wrong it was. There was no debate. You obeyed. If not, you starved as an outsider or burned as a heretic. Are we really about to throw away all those hard-fought freedoms? All the liberties costly won in blood and treasure? Soon we will see. We've had arcane discussions about Scotch eggs and foreign holidays, but very soon the political battle will be decided, and with it, our future. Will our future be one of near permanent face masks and lockdowns, or will we once again be able to smile at each other and go about our business as we please? Will we continue to know the freedoms we've enjoyed since Magna Carta, which were enshrined in the 1689 Bill of Rights? This is an open question. One clause in the latter document specifically outlawed excessive fines and cruel punishments. If you organise a protest against the government, it's a 10 grand fine. That seems excessive to me. Will our future be one of consents, permits and vax passports, or will we once again enjoy the freedom to live as we choose, without force, without secrecy, and without permission? There's a pub in Winchester called the Royal Oak where Englishmen have been able to drink ale without the government's permission for more than 1,000 years. That includes the Norman Conquest, the Civil War, the threats from Bonaparte and Philip of Spain, the Germans twice last century, as well as the notorious, relentlessly gloomy and puritanical rule of Cromwell during the interregnum. No one said we had to ask permission to buy beer. It's a birthright. It's a part of what makes us British, and to the devil with anyone who would take it away. Will our future be one of bodily autonomy and self-determination, or does the government own us? Are we chattel slaves to be treated by the government as farmers treat their cattle? Will they fleece us and corral us and decide when we can be allowed to go out? Will they inject us with whatever they want? Who would dare resist if they could inject you with anything? Medical fascism and chemical rape really don't appeal to me. It's worth remembering only 5 years ago, during the Ebola outbreak in West Africa, the government told us that travel bans weren't necessary despite Ebola having a 50% mortality rate. Yet we can't go to France because of a 0.3% mortality rate. Does this seem consistent to you? Will our future be one where our every purchase is tracked and monitored and assessed and recorded? They would have the power to restrict what we can purchase if some bureaucrat decides we need to eat more broccoli and less beef. Will our every movement and behaviour be recorded and monitored and officially approved or disliked. These are the issues. They're real, they're stark, and they will all be decided soon. We know the government want this, and please, it's not temporary. This is forever. It's easier to resist than remove. So that's the stark choice. A future of face masks and isolation, a future of house arrest at the government's convenience, a future of permissions and permits, a future where a politician or a bureaucrat decides what chemicals you must take, a future where your movements are authorized or prohibited, a future where your every purchase is recorded and assessed and checked and subject to the whim of another man, where your money can be switched off if you displease your masters. If they claim you are sick and infectious, who then would oppose your isolation, your detention, perhaps in a camp somewhere, for everyone's safety, of course? The Soviets did this if you disagreed with them. So did the Nazis. This is the future of concentration camps and gulags. Don't imagine this will be temporary. Once they have their hands around your throat, they'll never let go. The hard of thinking are cheering this on. The politicians who advocate this nothing more than traitors. 80 years ago our freedom was under threat once more, so consider a rallying cry from those times. The Battle of Britain is about to begin. Upon this battle depends the survival of Christian civilization. Upon it depends our own British life and the long continuity of our institutions and our empire. The whole fury and might of the enemy must soon be turned upon us. If we win this battle, all Europe may be freed and the life of the world may move forward into a broad, sunlit uplands. But if we fail, the whole world, including the United States, including all that we've known and cared for, will sink into the abyss of a new dark age made more sinister, perhaps more protracted, by the lights of perverted science. Let us therefore brace ourselves to our duties and so bear ourselves, so that if the British Empire and its Commonwealth last for 1,000 years, men will say, this was their finest hour. This is our time, our test, our battle. Shakespeare had Henry V saying before Agincourt, "We would not seek battle as we are, nor as we are will we shun it." If freedom means anything to you, we must resist. So say no to vax passports, no to digital currency, and no to forced vaccinations. Our fundamental rights and liberties as a freeborn people are at stake here. Don't be fooled. Don't be cajoled. Don't believe the lies. Stand up for what's right. Stand up for your freedom. If you like this, please like, recommend, and subscribe.